بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. نويت تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير ونفع انتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على تمسك بكتاب الله وبسنة الرسول صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير، ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. وبعد فاعلم بوجوب المعرفة من واجب لله 20 صفة. To proceed, so know it is incumbent to believe the 20 attributes are necessary for God. And upon whom is it incumbent to believe? It's on what we call the mukallaf. And the word mukallaf in the Arabic language, it comes from a term taklif, which originates in a masdar and a noun that is known as kulfa, bilughat al-Arab, which is to obligate that which is difficult. The basis of in the language of the Arabs is how do you extract water from a well that is running dry. It is degree or degrees of difficulty. That's kulfa. Here in terms of the shara, the Imams rahimahullah ta'ala, when they describe a taklif, the mukallaf, is a sentient person, a person who's adult, that their mind has reached what a state of maturity, as pubescent, they are of sound senses and they've received the divine teachings. And so it's somebody that, quote unquote, that their mind is functioning. And obviously what that is going to exclude is somebody who's been touched by, quote unquote, degrees of insanity or mental impairment. The second is that they have to be what? Baligh. And baligh is that they've reached, quote unquote, the point of maturity. The Imams can differ, radiallahu anhum, in terms of the law as to what are the signs of maturity. According to the Shafi'i fuqaha, that there are only 3 signs of what somebody reaching a state of maturity, and for amongst them is that what? Is that they see sperm in both the male and the female, and that's after 9 lunar years. From amongst them is that for a woman that she sees what? She menstruates, and that's after 9 lunar years. Both of them taqribiyan, approximately, meaning give or take, quote unquote, 15 days. And the final, i.e. if a man or a woman does not see sperm, or a woman does not menstruate up until the age of 15 lunar years, then they become now baligh or an adult by virtue of age at the age of 15. Hakada according to the Shafi'i fuqaha, and no doubt the Imams rahimahullah ta'ala have a great deal, the idea the schools of jurisprudence have a great deal to say in that regard. But it's going to exclude a child. The mukallaf legally and morally and ethically in charge by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would exclude children. So it excludes somebody who's mentally impaired, number one. It's also going to exclude children. And likewise, it excludes somebody who has an impairment of their senses. And by the senses here, the sense of hearing and the sense of what? Of speech. And the most important here is the sense of hearing. The basis of it, if the sense of hearing becomes impaired, then also the mind, by extension, becomes impaired. If the sense of hearing becomes impaired, then also that which the mind, quote unquote, represents the mind, which is the tongue. Mantiq is articulation. Mantiq is how the mind works. Also logic, that also the tongue becomes impaired. So somebody who is deaf, then the pen likewise has been lifted from them. They're not considered to be mukallaf. And then likewise, the last of them, and this is according to the Ash'ari school of jurisprudence, as opposed to the school of Imam Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, is bulugh al-da'wah, that also the teachings of the prophets must reach them. It must reach them, the teachings of the prophets. In this case, of our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as it relates to asl iman, the foundations of faith and belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the risala of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. According to the Ash'ari school, that if it does not reach them, then once again the pen is lifted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا, that we do not punish a people until we first dispatch a prophet or a messenger unto them. And so in the absence, mafhum mukhalaf, in the absence of actually a messenger or the message of the messenger reaching them, then the pen is lifted and they're not considered to be mukallaf. And so here the address, no doubt, in Tawheed, فَعْلَمْ وَبَعْدُ فَعْلَمْ بِوُجُوبِ الْمَعْرِفَةِ. And so wujub al-ma'rifah, who should know, who is the al-Marzuqi addressing? The mukallaf. That the mukallaf should understand that faith is a legal obligation upon the mukallaf, And thereby, radiallahu anhu, وأرضاه, he moves into what? Into theology. Now he's going to open up, quote unquote, the science of theology in and of itself. Okay, the science of theology, and it's going to divide into what? Into three distinct sections. Okay, three distinct sections. The first section is going to divide into what concerns Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, the Imam is going to adopt the term al-ilahiyat. Okay, the study of the divine subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-ilah. The second section is going to divide into the study of the phenomena of prophecy. Okay, and obviously the adherents and the recipients of that lofty station with the prophets themselves. And that's what the Imams are going to call nubuwat, going to call that the section of prophecy. And then the third of them is going to be called the sam'iyat, or the Imams rahimahullah ta'ala can use the word ghaybiyat. Okay, by sam'iyat, they mean here that which is beyond, quote unquote, sensual as well as rational perception. Ideally, where we have knowledge of it is through sama' from a perspective. And sama' has two basic meanings. Sama', that it manifests upon the tongue of the Prophet ﷺ, and thereby it was heard by that first generation around the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, who many of the Imams radiallahu anhum wardahum, they call Jil as-Sama', the generation of Sama', the generation of those who heard the word of prophecy, radiallahu ta'ala anhum wa ardahum. And secondly, radiallahu anhum wa ardahum, that the term Sama' also means supra-rational. Okay, that which is beyond the confines, quote unquote, of rationality. Again, in the Arabic language, okay, and the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is based on that, is based upon cognition, that which can be rationally understood, and it's also based upon that which cannot be rationally understood. Inside of the science of legal theory, rahimahullah ta'ala, they will use the terms ma'qul al-ma'na wa ghayr ma'qul al-ma'na. Ma'qul al-ma'na is something that can be rationally understood, and that is, quote unquote, the least element of religion. And then ghayr ma'qul al-ma'na, that which cannot be rationally understood, and that is overwhelmingly the majority of religion in and of itself. But in the science of theology, ghayr ma'qul al-ma'na, i.e. sam'iyat, is the third section of the science of theology. Okay, so there's not going to be no, quote unquote, pathway for the mind, quote unquote, to approach it and to try to rationalize it. Captured in a more simpler word, ghaybiyat, the unseen. So some of the Imams will adopt the term the ghaybiyat, i.e. the world of the unseen, although what is proper more so inside of the books of the Imams rahimahullah ta'ala is the adoption of the word sam'iyat, these supra-rational realities. Okay? In terms of ilahiyat, that the proofs that the Imams are going to employ, because we said the nature of faith is what is tasdiq, al-jazim, al-mutabaq, lil-waqi' an dalil, okay, proof. And so what type of proofs are we going to employ, inshallah ta'ala, to attain a degree of certitude, of certainty in these eternal realities? Okay, we can employ either what we call naqliyat or aqliyat. And so naqliyat are transmitted proofs, i.e. revelatory. We can employ revelation in order to substantiate belief, or we can employ, quote unquote, the workings, the principles of the sound mind, i.e. rational proofs. Okay, and that what you're going to call aqliyat. So we have naqliyat, we have aqliyat, i.e. a dalil al-naqli with a dalil al-aqli. And so we're going to have a dalil al-naqli, which is a proof from revelation, the book of Allah Ta'ala and the sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, al-mutawatir minha, that which has come down to us with on multiple chains of certain transmission. We're going to call that body of the traditions of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mutawatir, and it's the same transmission that underpins the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we embrace as the book of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu wa Ta'ala Azamatuhu, i.e. the Quran. And so we're going to employ revelation as proof, but likewise we also employ rational proofs also. Both revelatory proofs as well as rational proofs can be used to substantiate ilahiyat, divinity. They can be used both to substantiate nubuwat, prophecy, but only dalil al-naqli, only revelatory proofs can be used to substantiate the sam'iyat, eschatology, the world of the unseen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.